Welcome to Socializing Security, where every week we have a discussion about security, compliance, and beyond.
Our goal is to learn and grow by socializing each week's topic with each other, our guests, and with you.
A quick compliance note, this podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal or regulatory advice.
We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you'll learn along with us. And we're back with another episode of Socializing Security. Milu, how have you been? It's been busy for both of us lately, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Doing pretty well. The summer season is here. It's super hot where I live, so it's more time spent inside watching TV these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are feeling that heat wave this year. Get used to it. It's the new normal, if you will. But today we've got a kind of a fun topic, I think. It may not seem like it's fun, but we're hoping to have fun with it. Milo, you've done a lot of compliance training around phishing over the years, haven't you? What do people normally think about that?
Well, I mean, in general, people don't love compliance training. I think those two things just don't go well together, love and compliance training. I think for the most part, what I've always seen as the most effective is when employees are sharing recent examples of phish that they've gotten in their inbox and are starting to share them as like, hey, I got this text from the CEO, or hey, this looks like a simulation, or hey, this. And very often when you see employees sharing those within Slack or, a communication tool, generally they might actually be simulations, right? That the company is actually testing the employee base. So I've always found that it's the most effective when you see employees sharing real life examples and then also then taking those and training the rest of the organization to be like, hey, this looks like phishing because, right? This is how you report this, and also start to turn it into like tangible evidence and advice for them of being like, hey, this person identified this because this email was weird, or this grammatical error or something, to just like call out why it looked fishy. And, I think that's always been the most successful way to do it.
Yeah, we recently, I mean, it was pretty obvious it was a test of the phishing that resulted in me, clicking the little phishing button in our email client, doing my part, and then instantly going and creating a meme of Maxwell Smart from Get Smart saying the old phishing training results phishing training email trick, because it was one of those. It's like, hey, you failed at your last phishing training. Click on, open up this Excel file to go take a look at how you failed. And I'm like, classic phishing training. But it would mimic. I mean, it actually very well mimicked the type of email that a phisher would try to throw at you. So we're here to talk about phishing, obviously, but we want to try and have fun with it and make it the kind of compliance training you would want, if you will. So let's start with just kind of defining what is phishing. You want to take that one, Milo?
Yeah, sure. So it's a type of cyber crime where attackers trick individuals into revealing sensitive information or downloading malicious software. Generally, this can be done via email, text. Sometimes it can even be done right over the phone. So the goal for these cyber criminals is to get access to accounts, financial information, or systems so that they can commit fraudulent activities, commit identity theft, or a data breach.
Yeah, and usually it's kind of the first step in a chain of events, I guess. They'll ask you to click on a link in an email, and that usually will take you to a fake site. It may, hey, go take a look at this Excel file. It's on Google Drive, and it pops up a Google Drive login. Hey, you got to go log into Google. And it's not really a real Google site that they're sending you to. It's something where they're going to harvest your login credentials, which they'll instantly try to use and, exfiltrate whatever data or drop whatever payload they want based on that login. And there's, you see them for all sorts of things. It could be the Netflix password that looks like a Netflix site. So really the goal really is to try and get into whatever account they're trying to get into. And this has been a tried and true way of getting in, trying to break into organizations for quite a while now.
I think it's one of the most common ways that people get into systems is by clicking a link.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a few different types of phishing or different ways in which phishing can happen. And because we are the creative people that we are in this industry, we've come up with all sorts of interesting names for these different types. So like,
some of these are new to me. You might have to explain some of these to me. There's a long list here.
Yeah, I found the longest list I could find was 20 different types of phishing. But some of these we're going to have to cross-reference a little bit. The common ones like are email phishing. That's the most common one by far. You get an email and it looks like it's legit. And like I said, sometimes it's a, hey, you failed your phishing test. You need to go click on this, open this document. Now, when that is very tailored to an individual, they call that a spear phishing. So that is very targeted. Usually you don't like email phishing tends to be just kind of blanket. Let's send out as many emails as we possibly can and hope that 10 people click on it and that some of those people are in a environment that we want to break into. It's kind of a spray and pray approach, if you will. Whereas spear phishing is very targeted. It's let's learn about the target that we want. We want to get into this particular bank's environment, and we found that this person is probably a good target. They're relatively new to the industry. They're in a non-technical role. They probably have a medium level of access. It may not be deep, but it may be enough for us to get into another system. And so now we're going to go look at their LinkedIn, go look at their Facebook, go look at their Instagram, figure out some stuff about them, and then try to mimic a situation where they would get a real email. Find out who their boss is, find out who a coworker is, find out which office they're in, and say, hey, here's a new PDF for the floor plan for this XYZ office. Go ahead and open up and make sure it looks good. And then person clicks on that, boom, they've now been owned in that regard.
Yeah, and whaling is a similar one to spear phishing, where whaling is really going after the executives of an organization. So they're really targeting the CEOs, the VPs, the high-level execs, and are really sending them targeted attacks based off of their seniority within the organization, given that they're expecting that those individuals will have heightened access to sensitive systems, specifically like the financial systems.
Yeah, and those those of us that have done sales will often talk about, hunting whales. And that's, you go in for those big accounts, going for the really big hits, very time consuming, very resource intensive, but can, if you win that, you've gotten a really big catch at that point. So it's more than just a fish, it's a whale.
And then one that we're probably all used to is smishing, where you're getting text messages requesting sensitive information, potentially having links. I think that's what a lot of us see as just like junk messages, right? Of us getting messages from random phone numbers, right, that are asking for information, or ones that are pretending that it's your CEO of your organization that you work with, right? And he's asking you to send a gift card or asking you, to send some type of information. So it's a different channel, but it's called smishing when it's through text.
Yeah, and that's one that we're seeing more and more. It's gotten pretty easy to hack into the SMS systems and to manipulate those. There's not a lot of authentication around them. SIM swapping is a thing that's out there as well that allows people to throw out a whole bunch of messages really, really fast, and then they don't care if anything happens from that. They're not looking to engage per se, though there is some good comedy out there that will take, whether it's email phishing or SMS phishing, the smishing type approach, and play with those people and try to, if there's a person on the other end, they start a conversation, and then there's some good comedy out there for that. I'd recommend looking for that if you're looking for a good laugh at someone who's trying to take advantage of other people's expense. So it's kind of cool. But at the same time, I don't recommend people do it because it can, they're looking for any little bit of information sometimes, especially if it's part of a larger coordinated attack where, I may use a smishing attack against a whaling attack target. So I may smish somebody to find out more information about them so I can send them a better crafted email. So potential chaining of a lot of these, I guess, is kind of the point there. Another one is phishing, and you can probably see the trend of the plays off of phishing. Phishing is voice-based. So, hey, we want to go and call somebody up. And this is one that we've seen more and more of and is getting to that point where it's sometimes you can't trust the voice of your own family type of a thing, whether it be AI generated or whether it be somebody under duress. And you start to see this recommendation of have a secret family passphrase that can be used to define whether the person on the other end of the line is real or not. So, if you don't predefine it, it could be something of, hey, what was our favorite show to watch when you were a kid? Something that only that other person would know. Or it could be, hey, I'm going to say the word watermelon, and I want you to reply with the word San Francisco. And that becomes it's a bit of spy versus spy type stuff, which is kind of an interesting approach to things within your own family, just to authenticate that you are really who you are, and that nobody's trying to, hey, this is your grandson, can you send me $100 to get me out of jail, type of, is a common phishing attack vector there.
I'm having to Google some of the ones that you pulled on this list. I'm seeing that evil twin phishing seems to have more to do with like a fake Wi-Fi network, so that that's where, you're working remotely and say you're at Starbucks, and instead of Starbucks guest, you're using Starbucks free Wi-Fi, right? And then by joining that, you're entering credentials, and then, they're able to capture the transmitted data on your laptop that you're sending over that Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one where you can see it's had other names in the past too, but Wi-Fi is a common attack factor, and you should always be very careful about which Wi-Fi connections you make. But sometimes they will create one that has the same name, so it's very easy to jump onto and become a place where they can, adversary in the middle type of an attack, where they can, you go to Google and they redirect you to a fake Google login, and they can then capture things that way. So it's kind of an interesting one. It's very technical. Again, it's probably used more in those spaces where either in an area like a coffee shop where they're going to try and catch a lot of people, or it's a very targeted attack that may be coming out at them. Another one of these unusual ones on the list is search engine phishing, which is similar to the Wi-Fi one, where they're going to manipulate search engine in some way. It could be putting up a fake search engine somewhere, or they may be actually manipulating the search engine results. SEO poisoning being one. So search engine optimization. It's a pretty well-known science at this point, how, which results pop up at the top of the list. On most search engines, it's usually 2 or 3 ads. Someone has paid to be at the top of that particular search, or it's, sites that have the most links or the most references to that particular term, and then using that to try and bump up a fake site up to the very top.
So why do these things happen in the first place?
I guess first and foremost, because they work is generally the first thing. If they weren't working, they wouldn't use it. The sophistication of these continues to get better. Back in the early days, a lot of us joke about the Nigerian prince scams, which was, hey, I'm going to send you an email, and I'm a Nigerian prince, and I've got $50 million, and I just need you to send me $1,000, and then I can unlock that money, and I'll give you half of it, or something to that effect. Obviously, lots of variations of that theme. And people fall for it. People still fall for it to this day, even as a very much a cultural joke these days. And so that has, to me, that's the evolution that has evolved to the current day of, hey, you failed your phishing simulation, click on this report to take a look. They get better at manipulating. They get better at finding out how to get people to do the thing that they want to do, and making it less about, hey, send me money, and more about, you just need to click on this thing.
Yeah, it's usually like compelling information, right? Like I know that I've seen ones that are pretty successful where they're like, hey, like, HR is sending something out and it has like salary information or something like that, or bonuses or something like that, where employees are like curious. And then that's how they get clicks, because they're like, wait, I want to know how much HR is paying all of my team members. And then they'll click, and then that's how they fall for it, of, downloading that information. So fortunately, I think we moved away from the really stereotypical ones. I do still think, within my experience, I've still seen a lot of new hires fall for the gift card scam. And that's just unfortunate that generally that happens really quickly. Somebody updates their LinkedIn to say that they started within an organization, and then that triggers this, pretty immediate request from the CEO to be asking for something urgent or to be buying gift cards. And unfortunately, that is one that's still very common and happens a lot.
Yeah, even though most organizations are very clear with their employees, the CEO will never message you. The CEO will never ask you for gift cards, especially in larger organizations where, I've never met my CEO in person. So there's no reason he would ever want to do that. I think another reason is just like I said, it works. And it has become a legitimate business. Well, an illegitimate business, but a real business. There are ransomware as a service offerings. There are groups that do nothing but this all day long. Just a few statistics, because I feel like this one is a meaningful place to throw some statistics. And of course, every report may be a little bit different. But in 2023, victims reportedly paid more than $1 billion in ransoms. Like, it works. They get into your system, whether it be your personal system and you want to unlock your wedding photos, like we've talked about in the past, or you get into a business and they need their files. They need to be able to access that database. And so they pay the money. The average ransom paid by mid-size organization is over $150,000. And the largest single confirmed ransomware payment was $75 million. I mean, that's more than some businesses do in an entire year. And in some of those cases, when we talk about the largest ever, it was probably getting into more of the whaling or spear phishing type of a scenario where they were going after something very big and very specific and were able to spend some resources on it. But quite frankly, you got 2 or 3 people that may be hunting this whale over 6 months. Well, that more than pays for itself at that point. If you get a single payment of, $75 million, you could throw a lot of resources at that particular problem. And when you catch that whale, I mentioned the ransomware as a service, and that's a big part of it, is that it's become so much easier to send these out. So of course we're all familiar with spam, and the amount of fake email that we get, and it's kind of interesting listening to interviews with people that do or have done spam farms in the past, or even the current. I've heard a few, because they tend to be like, it's just email. Like, why is everybody freaking out? I'm just sending out a bunch of email. But it's super easy and super cheap to just send out spam. I mean, just go look at your spam filter. And if you're on any popular mail service or have ever been a victim of a data leak, which is pretty much all of us, you'll see that there's no lack of spam hitting your account. And being able to send that out so easily, and using things like ransomware as a service to craft the pieces and parts that are necessary, like automatically create a fake site for you to direct people, give you the contents of the email, help you to automate the whole process of sending out all of these emails. Like, all you have to do is pay them or give them a percentage of whatever ransom you happen to get out of that. And they're more than happy to host all of the resources and tools that you need.
So wild to think that people are just profiting off of illicit activity and are able to just like crowdsource it to making sure that this is like a sustainable business model, which is so scary. And it will only continue to get better with AI models helping craft those messages to make them harder to catch.
Yeah, the AI versus AI wars are definitely going full tilt right now in this space, and it's only going to spiral downward. I think the last piece that's worth calling out is the human factor. And we started this conversation talking about training, and that's because this is not a technical problem. This is not a technical attack. It involves technical elements, but the main attack vector is to get a person to click a link. And that is unfortunately the easiest avenue to start this kill chain, if you will, to get into this set of dominoes that will lead to a ransomware event or some sort of extortion or exfiltration event. So while we do awareness training, it's not always effective. And again, it's an arms race. They're getting better at it. And then we have to retool all of our training so that we can be like, hey, this is a thing that's happening out there. Be on the lookout for it. And it just continues to improve on both sides. So we're constantly kind of chasing the rabbit.
Yeah, and simulations are probably one of the best ways to train employees these days, as opposed to just like once a year cybersecurity awareness training that says like, don't click on malicious links. I think actually having coordinated regular expectations of testing your employee base to make sure that they are slowing down, making sure that they're being mindful, that they're reporting it properly so that your IT and security teams can actually invest properly is most likely the best thing that organizations can do right now, is actually make sure that you're partnering with a phishing simulation training provider and are actually doing regular repeated occurrences. And then also, if people fall for them, make sure that they're doing beneficial training. I think I've seen a lot of organizations that if somebody clicks a link, they end up having to do the same training over and over again, which is clearly not working. So I think it's being mindful too of what's the trigger of if somebody clicks, what training are they getting out of that? And is it different if they fall for it the second time, or is it the third time they end up meeting with their compliance person? Or what is it that your organization is doing to making sure that you're training effectively, especially for repeat offenses?
Yeah, and it's a tough line between getting the person educated and being punitive about using training as a punishment, quite frankly, is definitely the way I would look at it is I have to do it more than once a year because I failed. Thanks a lot. And it's less likely to take the second time around because they will have a little bit more of an angst to it. Or more likely to fast forward through it or play it on 2.5x speed. So being mindful about what is your follow-up plan. Different people learn differently. So it may not be having to sit and watch an hour of videos. Maybe it is a more real world scenario. Maybe it is more of a sitting down and having a conversation type of effect. So this is a place where I think there's a lot of room for innovation for companies to think about their culture, what they want to promote within their culture, and how their people are best going to absorb this kind of information.
Yeah. So how can people spot a phishing email? Because I think that's probably our next thing to talk about is beyond the Nigerian prince example, what are the best ways to actually spot a phish?
Yeah, the best way to avoid the training is to actually find it in the first place and then know what to do about it.
Uh-huh.
And so first and foremost, before you even think about trying to spot it, make sure you know how to report it. Because to your point, those become examples that get used later on within the organization. Those are ways that your IT team can potentially block certain email domains or the types of links or the types of documents that are being sent. So how do you spot them? I mean, it's really anything that makes you feel uneasy about an email. It's unusual. It's coming from an email address you don't recognize. Sometimes you have to actually look at the address itself and not just the name attached to it, because that's super easy to spoof. And quite frankly, so is the email address. The sender header is very easy to manipulate. We are using technology to send email still to this day that was developed back in the 40s, 50s, 60s timeframe, back when security was not the primary way of doing things. Anything that looks suspicious that really is trying to push you to do something.
Urgency is a big one, yeah.
Yeah, unusual, just generally unusual requests. Like I don't normally get an email from my CEO asking for things. I don't normally get oh, holy cow, this thing is on fire. You need to go review this document for me. People don't usually mistakenly send you the list of everybody's salaries in a single Excel spreadsheet. Don't click on that one.
Yeah, I think this one is a little bit less common. I do think like poor grammar and spelling. I think a lot of that has probably changed now, specifically with a lot of the AI tooling. I think we're seeing less of the very clear, like poor grammatical error or, so I think that one is a little bit less. Obviously, that is a surefire way to see if somebody is messaging in a way that, just reads really clunky, then, it's probably not real. But I do think we're seeing less of that one necessarily. But I do also think generic salutations, it's not how somebody would normally reach out to you or, different.
Dearest Brian, please click on this link. Salutations, Fred.
Now I'm going to have to start sending you emails with Dearest Brian.
Yeah, and those definitely fall into the suspicious, weird, unusual bucket for sure. But AI is helping to make non-English speakers do English better. I purposely butchered my English there, but by no means is it perfect, and it definitely doesn't always fit the culture norms. And that's a lot harder to manipulate there. Of course, anytime that they're asking you to divulge some sort of personal information, to really go out of your way or provide information normally people wouldn't ask. And you know what? It's just like when, again, compliance training tries to teach us that if you see somebody walking around the office you don't recognize that looks suspicious, that may be trying to ride behind people, tailgating through locked doors, you should feel empowered to question those things. So if you get an email and you're like, I'm not sure this one really could be my CEO, they may really want, this seems like a scenario that could be plausible, just reply back. Or better yet, go to an instant message or text or email, go to a different
Channel.
avenue. different channel, and ask them straight up, or ask, in the case of an executive assistant, if you have access to the information, if they're asking for a specific customer, you can go ask that sales rep or customer manager, because they should be in the know what's going on there. I mean, really anything you could do to verify whether this is real or not is legitimate. You should try to do if you honestly think that this is most likely real.
Yeah, no one is ever going to get in trouble for double checking, right? So I always think, be mindful, slow down, report, verify, take the step to actually go through another communication channel and just ask to being like, hey, I got this message, is this legitimate? Or, double check, because no one is going to get upset at you for taking the time to just slow down and be mindful about being like, hey, I'm not sure that this was legitimate. Can you confirm? And most likely they will tell you, yes, that was legit, or no, that wasn't me, and please report it. So I think there's something to be said about just slowing down and being mindful and then asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite frankly, my perspective is if I get in trouble for double checking on something like that, then I may not be in the type of organization I want to be in, because it becomes that's a sign that this environment may not be as secure as I would want it to be, and I may not want to be associated with it. I know that's easier said than done. Ethics and those types of things are not always the easiest things to follow through on, but you got to look out for those signs to make sure that you're in an organization that you really want to be associated with.
And also be mindful that any of us could fall for a phish.
Yes.
So even the best of us will fall for something. So please, if you do accidentally click and you fall for your simulation training, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed about it. It's very common. All of us are usually moving too quickly, and we forgot to slow down and we clicked something. So always be mindful of, it could happen to any of us. I know I've almost fallen for things. So, it can happen to the best of us, especially as they continue to get more sophisticated.
Yeah, and there's no lack of examples over even in the last few months. So the guy that runs the site Have I Been Pwned fell for one, and it was the classic. He happened to be traveling. He doesn't know if it was a spear phishing type situation, but he was traveling. He was tired. He was trying to get caught up on things, and he was moving quickly without the full cognitive abilities maybe he should have been using, and clicked on the link, instantly knew he clicked on the link, and started trying to, kind of went into emergency mode at that point. So even the professionals who help us all try to be better by giving us the tools to do better got owned. And fortunately, it was a situation where he didn't lose anything like PII. If I remember correctly, it was just like an email list or something to that effect. So it wasn't like he was losing credit card numbers or anything like that. But it very well could have been, if I were a financial analyst for a company and I accidentally did that, was in the same situation and happened to have access to my company's books, then that might have been the thing that got lost. So yeah, don't feel bad about it. This is like we've talked about before, security is a team sport. And that means we all have to be willing to take not necessarily the blame, but be willing to admit when we've failed, so that the team can then lift us back up and help us to prevent the situation from being worse. Cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful. And not as boring. Not as boring. No, that's a bad way to say it. Not as obligatory as a phishing training for compliance would be. So hopefully that helps you all kind of better understand what those compliance training is trying to get to in a format that's a little bit more hopefully engaging. Hopefully we're engaging to our audience.
Slow down, report, verify, reach out to your team, and also kind of make it like a team sport. If you do see something within your email that you find interesting, share it to your team and being like, hey, I saw this as a phish, so that you are all kind of on the same page and that you can spot them better together.
Yep. So good luck out there. Everyone's got in for you. But yeah, there are ways to stay safe. So be vigilant and slow down. We could all use with slowing down a little bit in this day and age. So this is a good place to practice that.
Thanks for socializing with us.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Socializing Security. We hope you learned a thing or two with us.
If you'd like to continue socializing with us on this topic or have feedback, we'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn or social media. Just search for Socializing Security. Or you can email us at info@socializingsecurity.com.
Until next time, stay social and stay secure.